Now let's see what is static. So to know the statics, what we can do, let me. So when we say static, so what do you mean by static? So when we when we have any variable, when we have any variable with static or any method with static, it will belong to class. So let's say if you are, let me create one package here. I would say so. If I come here, all right, and if I say here that if I let me create one class as a student with this with the example, we'll understand this actually. So this is my class. Okay. So here we are understanding like what is static here. So static, if a definition, if I say definition, then definition is like a static variable in Java is variable which belong to class and initialized only once at the start of execution. You don't need to create any object. That variable and method will belong to your class. All right. So let's understand this. We'll change our variable static, non-static, and we'll understand like what is changes, what kind of changes is happening actually on our output. Okay. So here we have to understand that this will belong to a class. Every time what we do, even here what we did here, we created an object. But and if I say let me initialize here, so I would say integer a. This is my one variable, and the data type is integer. Okay, so I have initialized actually, and by default the value of this one is, because there's no value I have given here. I didn't say anything a equal to 10, something like that. I didn't declare actually. By default, the value will be 0. Now, I'll be having one more variable here. So I will say static, and I will say integer. I use my static keyword here. Okay? See the difference actually. So this is one is my non-static variable, another is one my static variable. Clear? Now, there's one more concept we have in Java, which is a constructor. So constructor is a method which have a same name as your class name. So what basically we do when we create a method, we will say public void display. Okay, record is my method. This is what we do actually. We create a method, right? But this name is not same as the class name. So this is not a constructor. Okay, but when I have a method, its name is same as your class name. So if I say only student, and here if I say it is an also, it's also having a body. We can write something here. This will serve as a method, but method name is method name always have a different name than your class name. But here I'm using the same name as a class name. So whenever you use a same name as your class name, that method will be a constructor. So here I didn't use anything public or anything. So as of now, this is my default. This is my default. I don't need to write it actually. It will be a default. That's what I'm saying. So by default, this constructor will be a default actually. Okay. There's no excess modifier I have used here. All right. So what I can do here is I will increment the value of this b. So right now, what is the value of this b is again 0. The value is 0 because see, we didn't give any value right to this. It's a 0. All right. So now what we are doing here, we are incrementing the value of b. Okay. So what we can say b plus. Even if you write like this, you can write like this. Even if you want to write equal to b plus 1, you can write like this as well. Up to you. The meaning will be same. B plus plus, that means b plus b equal to b plus 1. So right now, what is you are having b is a 0. So B is a 0. 0 plus 1, 1. Now B will become a 1 here. Okay. So this is how we write actually. And we will be using this with for loop as well. All right. So this is my constructor. Here I'm incrementing the value of B. Okay. Right now it's 0. Now it will become 1 here. When we will run our, or whenever we initialize our object, whenever we'll be creating our object actually. All right. So now what I can do, I have incremented my value of B, but I need to print. How would I know that it's the value has incremented actually? So for that, I'll be creating one method here. So we'll say public void, and we'll say show data. Right. This is again one method, but this is not a constructor because this name is not similar to your class name. Okay. So here what we are doing is we are saying system.out.println, and we'll say a equal to, okay, and we'll be saying plus a. Right. So here it will print the value of a. We'll be saying, okay, the value a. So value a will be 0. Okay. Now if I say system.out.println, because here I didn't increment the value of a, it always will be 0 actually. Here I have just incremented the value of b only. All right. Let's say now if I say here b equal to plus b. All right. So now these two statement I have written here. All right. Now what I need my main method. Okay. So I need my method. So what I can do here is I can say main. Okay. Because static I can access without creating any object, but I need to access this when I need object. This is non-static. All right. I'll be creating my object here. So what I can say, I will say student, student, or let me copy it actually, student, and I'll say s1 new, and I'll be saying student. Done. Okay. So for this, I as soon as I will be creating an object, no need to call this method explicitly. Actually, I don't have to do like s1 dot what is that? I don't have to do like this. This is what we do, calling the method. This is what we do. But here we'll not do like this. I know this is a method, kind of method, which is a constructor, okay, because it's having the same name as your class name. But I will not call my constructor like this. But if I want to call this one, which is non-static method, I'll be using this one. So we are creating an object. We are creating an object to access this method, non-static, because this is static and this is non-static. No matching here. This is static and this is also static. I can use it actually. So even if I say here system.out.println, and if I say class name dot, you can see B is coming here because B belong to static. So I can say B. I can access my B. But let's try with for A. If I say system.out.println, if I say student dot C, you find A here? No. I want to access, let's say I want to access this A variable as well. You cannot find because that's non-static. To call your static variable or method, you can directly use your class name. So this is belong to class. So whatever you are having here with a static keyword, those belong to class level, not object level. You don't need object for this actually. Okay, so you don't need anything. So this is what I'm saying. So your static variable and method belong to your class, not to object. And this is what we saw here. It's not coming. This non-static variable is not coming here. Only static variable is coming here. Clear? Even if you are having one more method here, so you say public static. Let me uncomment this. Right. Let me remove. I'll be saying something I had to see. Let me see what is the issue here. It's saying what is static. What is the issue here? So it says set return type or void. Okay. So we'll say void. So public static, because I don't want this method to return something. Okay. So now as soon as I will write void, it will not return anything. I will say simply system.out.println and say static method. All right. So this is a static method I have, and this is a static variable I have. Let's try to access this. So I'm having this class here, and as soon as I will write dot, you will see this method here. So you don't need to create an object for this actually. Okay, and you can directly print. Okay, just remove this semicolon, and it's working fine. All right, let's see what is the issue here. Arguments, remove the arguments. All right, no, you cannot print here because it's not returning any value. If it is written some value here is, v is your void, so you can directly simply you can say student dot. That's it. Your work is done. You don't need to have this thing under a system.out.println statement because it's not returning any value. If you change it to return value, let's say if I say integer, okay, then you will be having return type. Something written should be there. Okay, because you have changed it. Now it's returning the value for you. And then you can have that in a system.out.println. Clear? So far we are clear here that, our system, static variable or method belong to class, not to object. Okay, let me remove all this. So this is what we have. This is the constructor we have because it has the same name as your class name. All right, we are incrementing the value here. We are printing the value here, but to call this method, we need object. We are clear here that we have incremented our value of b, but this is not a static. So for this one, we need to create object. So what we can do, I'll remove all this now. So we created one object here. All right. Now to access this method, I have created an object here. And now I can access this method because this is non-static. I'll be creating one more object here. So if I say S2, all right, I can create multiple objects. It's up to me, right? So every time I'll be creating an object, okay, I'll be getting a fresh value of that. So let's say if I say again S1, S2, S1 is this one. Okay. So now say S1, S2, and we'll say show data. I can access this method with S2 reference variable. I can access this with S1 as well. Okay, so I'm calling this method with 2 times. All right, so let's understand this now. If my focus come here and the value is incremented, what B will be printed? Vishal, what B will be printed here for the first one? If I'm calling this method, I want to know that what B will be printed. I mean, the first time when this method will be called, what it will be printed for B. And second time again it will be called, same method will be called with the different reference variable. We are creating 2 objects, right? So let's try to run this actually. So if I'm run this, it's saying A equal to 0, B equal to 2, which is correct because see, now B become a 1 here. B. B is a now a like see here it will be B equal to 1 because see, we incremented the value of B. Okay, so it's okay till here. Now second time when this method will be called, it's saying B A equal to 0 because see, we are not changing anything in A. It's always same. Okay, we are not incrementing the value of A. So it will be 0. Got it. What about B? B should not be 2, right? Because this is the phrase object I have created. The value is incrementing here. This is not object. This is the new object. The see, 2 copy you have. So 1 copy of this one and 1 copy of this one. So for again, if you are calling this fresh copy, it should be again 0 and 1 should be become bump. So it should be 0 1 0 1. Why it's 2? So when you have a static variable, it will hold the value of, it will store the value somewhere. Okay. Or I can say it will store the value in a heap. Heap is a memory actually. So it will store the value of B in somewhere heap memory. Let's try to do it actually. Let me remove this static. Now we'll do it like this only. Okay. Now A will come here and it will be a 0 1. Okay. So 0 1 again I'm calling this one. So let's try to run this now again. So it's saying 0 1 0 1 because this is my phrase copy. So for this one again it will understand, okay, again B is my 0, it's becoming 1 here and now it will print 1. But static will be like it will store that value. As soon as it will become 1, it will store at some place because this belong to class, not belong to object. And this belong to object. This is belong to object. If you are having a non-static variable, that will belong to object. And that's why it's changing. It's become 1 again here. But as soon as you will be having a static, it will belong to class. So it will be 2. As soon as it become 1, it store the value 1 somewhere in heap memory, and now it's B1. 1 plus 1, 2. So this is how it works actually. And yeah, so this is when we talk about the static variable and method, and that's why we say a static variable and method belong to class. We saw that, right? There's no need to create the object for that. We can directly use the class name and we can use that method and we can use that variable, right? So that is there. Also one more thing here. When I say constructor cannot, constructor never be a return type actually, cannot have a return type. It will be void always. It will perform the operation, but you cannot have like this, public int or date value, something like this. You will not have like this. Not use return type here. It will say return. But yes, if you want to have you want to pass the parameter, you can pass the parameter here. Say integer A, integer B. Like this. Now this is parameter. This is also a constructor. This is also a constructor. Here we are passing a parameter. We'll see this as well in a proper way actually. But for your knowledge, I'm just telling you that we can have a parameter as well. This is the default one. There's no parameter here, right? So when you will be calling this, how you'll call this? To call this, you have to simply say student. Let me just copy and paste. I don't want any mistake here. S2 new, or you can now. This is also a constructor. This is also a constructor. How I can call this one actually? What is the difference we have in this and this? Only just parameter. So what I can do, I can say student 5 and 6. So now it will understand, okay, this is person is talking about some parameter, and this 2 parameter I'm having here. So I should have to call this one. As soon as you initialized, uh, here, your method will be called. You don't need to call like this s2 or something like this. You don't have to do like this s2 and then student and all that. You don't have to do like this. You don't have to do like this. So as soon as you will be creating an object, this method will be called. Okay, so this is how it works. So we simply in simply way, we just saw that what is the constructor. So you should always keep in your mind that constructor is always have a same name as your class name. It can also have a parameter, it cannot have a parameter. That's there actually. How we can call? We have some difference, right? In this and this one, we are not having any parameter. We will not pass any argument here. If I'm having parameter, I will pass my arguments here. And based on that, it will understand like, okay, this time I have to call this one, and first time I have to call this one. There, right? It will not also have a return type. Constructor will not have a return type. So this is not there. So this is how it works actually. All right. So, all right. So